When we look at mele Hawaiʻi, especially mele that were written 10, 20, 100, even 1,000 years pre our own existence, we're able to see the ʻāina in ways that our kūpuna saw it. So if you wonder sometimes what our ʻāina looked like prior to the arrival of sugarcane and pineapple, or prior to the introduction of buildings and traffic lights, all you need to do is look through mele, and mele will tell you what our kūpuna saw. Mele will tell you what our ʻāina used to look like, how our waters moved, how our rains caressed our skin, and what temperature the ocean was like at certain times of the year. For instance, Hanohana o Maui, a mele that was written for this ʻāina of Maui. A kahi hoʻiau a ʻike maka, I ka wai hui hui a o iau. And what does that line tell us about iau? It tells us about the temperature of the water. Is the temperature of the water in iau warm or is it cold? Well, we know through this mele that it's cold. And so songs like this that were written for places tell us about that particular ʻāina, whether it's about the elementals, perhaps the temperature of the water, perhaps the general feeling of the area, or different types of land features. Sometimes these types of understandings don't get passed on through simple conversation. Mele record understandings of our kūpuna that are able to be passed on through generations because of the way that it's delivered. So many of our mele Hawaiʻi reference names of winds and rains, mountains and rivers, and it's through mele that we in our generation are able to understand what our kūpuna saw and what they lived through. E hoʻi kananiʻi mokuʻula is a good example of mele that hold the names of rains and winds. In the verse, E hoʻi kananiʻi mokuʻula I ka uka wale o waineʻe, ka ua ula mai ko uka, ka alani mai ko ke kai. This verse tells us that ka ua ula is the rain that comes from up the mountain, and that ka alani is the rain that comes from the sea. It's not just about documenting these names. That particular line, as many mele Hawaiʻi often do, also tells us the direction in which the rain falls, or the side of the island in which the rain comes from. And knowing that type of information is just as important, not just for our own general knowledge and understanding, but also so that we know how to interact with our ʻāina as well. When you have mele that are upbeat and cheerful, it's hard sometimes to get out of your head. So what happens then? You end up singing it all the time. What happens then to that mele? It stays with the individual. And the individual then, maybe without realizing it, is continuously singing. And now, not only does this individual know the words to the song, but they know about the ʻāina that they're singing about. And so that type of knowledge acquirement is one that happens inadvertently, but it happens. And so mele has that power and influence to stick with you. Our kūpuna understood the idea of power in the word. We know that the more that we speak life into mele that expound upon the vibrancy of an area, the more it becomes true. An example is in 2018, we were going through a particularly rough year of rainfall. And so our island was experiencing drought. There was newer cases of diversion of our water. And in that same year, a group of hula people, dancers, kumuhula, and chanters as well, they performed a mele called E Hoʻi Nā Wai, written by Kumuhula Kori Pueopata. And not too long after they performed that mele, there was a big rainstorm. So big that it changed the topography of our riverbed in Iao. It widened it. It created new waterways that we never saw before. And so when I think about that moʻolelo, I think about the power that mele have to influence the elementals, to ask the powers that be for things that we need or for things that we mele, that we lack. And I think about the power that we have as people when we are united and when we perform mele with conviction and a deep understanding of who we are and our pilina to ʻāina and the influence that we have in being able to provide for our ʻāina just as it provides for us.